How I moved from this to this is straight out of a dream, but not the peaceful kind. This one had an identity crisis, budget battles, and more Pinterest tabs than anyone should ever legally open. But through all the iterations, breakdowns, and last-minute changes, I've learned a lot. Like a lot. Enough to maybe save you from repainting your wall 5 times and making simple design mistakes. So, before you redo your living room and hallway, watch this. Just 5 years ago, this is what I had for a living room setup, and most of you would remember that was when
China has identified the cause of the
mysterious new virus.
Coronavirus.
There are fears a rapidly spreading virus has reached Australia.
with a wild lockdown and lots of time to ourselves. Most people spent their time in front of screens. In my case, that's when I got wind of the whole setup tour thing on YouTube. And tell you what, I got hooked. From that moment, I went down a rabbit hole. Thousands of reference images filled my Pinterest mood boards, design books started populating my shelves. I learned a lot about different design styles, Scandinavian, mid-century, bohemian, industrial, the list goes on and on. But deep down, I wasn't sure I would be able to pull it off. 2 years later, I finally felt confident enough and did my first living room makeover. And yeah, I was happy in that space. But the more I kept learning about design and tech, the more I kept getting ideas on how to improve the space. In that process, I knew it wouldn't just be for kicking back and watching my favorite shows. It had to wear different caps depending on what I needed it for. So a year later, I did another makeover, and your reactions, they summed it perfectly. Now, while I was happy with how it looked, an opportunity came to get a bigger space and my eyes lit up straight away. I had the chance to iterate on the design again, but this time I had a bigger space. In short, a bigger canvas to play with, which went from this to this. Again, if you're planning to redo your living room or hallway or just need some inspiration for the future, you've clicked on the right video. Now, I'd be lying if I said I designed and decked out the space without knowing what the layout looked like. Long before I got here, the layout was already set in stone. An open plan living area with the kitchen on the left or right, depending on where you're standing, then the hallway stretching down to the main door. That was as far as the designation would go. Everything else, that was up to me. The area next to the wall separating the garage and the inside of the house, that would be the living and entertainment area. Next to that, the dining area, both flowing into each other like a perfect ecosystem. As for the hallway, that's where things got interesting. It led to the garage, the main entryway, and the master bedroom. That meant I had to ensure it wasn't just functional, but a visual masterpiece. And you'll see exactly how I achieved that as we dive into how I designed the space. Starting with the living room area design, a lot of it was drawn from my previous setup. The slat panels, the industrial shelving unit, the media console, the coffee table, the L-shaped couch, and of course, the plants would set the tone for both the living room and hallway. White and walnut would be the main colors of the setup, and to carry on with that theme, I searched up for items that would match that aesthetic and found them. Having watched a fair amount of setup tours, read a decent amount of design books, and got a few setup makeovers under my belt, I knew contrast, height, different textures, shapes, and colors would make it a spectacle for the senses. Hence the orange pop on the curtains, the grey on the couch, the texture from the carpet, slat panels and the half-round timber molding on the media console, just to name but a few. Storage would also be a key aspect, but we'll get to that a little later in the video. For the hallway, I was walking into uncharted territory. Never had I done a hallway makeover before, and this got me scratching my head for ideas. Design-wise, I was a bit lost, but functionality-wise, I knew exactly what I wanted. 1. A place where I could comfortably remove and put on my shoes. 2. A place where I could check out my outfit before I left the house. 3. A place where I could store my keys and easily access my regular mail and packing finds. And 4. A place where I could build a home bar for when I host my friends and whenever I feel like having something slightly stronger than coffee. With that in mind, I had to make it another spectacle for the senses, so I went back to my inspiration dump. In my case, the usual suspects: YouTube videos, design books, and Pinterest mood boards. After a while, Pinterest is where I got most of my design inspiration, and like an artist with a paintbrush, I brought it to life. But more on the details a little later. That in a nutshell was how I came up with the design of this space, and you could use the same formula to design your space. What about the tech and furniture? Well, say less. Let's start with the TV. This here is the 85-inch Samsung Q60A. Even though it's an entry-level QLED, it sits on the sweet spot between affordability and good quality features. With a few years of use under its belt now, this behemoth fits the bill perfectly, more so for the average consumer. When it comes to gaming, while I may not be getting all the next-gen gaming features like variable refresh rate that supports 4K at 120 FPS, since I mostly game on my PC, that's not big of an issue, and I'd assume the casual gamer like me would be on the same boat. When it comes to general TV use, the colors are nice and vibrant, even though it's a VA panel that runs at 60 Hz. As for the viewing angles, when you move off-center, the images become a bit washed out, but if you're like me, I'd assume you'll be sitting around the center every time you watch TV. The one thing that you'll find a bit annoying is the reflections, especially when you watch TV during the day. Now, the TV by itself gives me everything I need when watching a movie or a documentary, but to take the experience a notch higher, I added Govey LED strips behind the TV and 2 park lights on the side. Where they really come to life is when darkness falls, and they work in tandem with the rest of my living room lights. As for the feature wall, I went with acoustic walnut panels, and they really take the aesthetics to a different level. Over the last couple of years, a lot of people have been adding them to their spaces, and you can see exactly why. When it comes to the menu and user interface, it uses the old format of Tizen OS, but that shouldn't be that big of an issue. You'll still be able to get the usual apps, you know, the YouTubes, the Netflixes and Tubies of the world. Then you can always download others of your choice. Please talk about the storage on the TV wall. Well, say less. Like mentioned earlier, storage was a key element of my design process, and you'll see why as we unfold every area of this living room and hallway. Starting with the IKEA Besta boxes, they add plenty of storage and visual interest to the TV wall. The best part is they can be configured in a variety of ways depending on the boxes you choose. Installation is pretty straightforward. When I did mine, I used the provided manuals and templates. Speaking of installation, the industrial shelving unit is even more foolproof. Once you lock the shelves in place, you simply get some wall plugs and screw it into the wall. From there, if you're like me, you can display plants, books, and other miscellaneous items. Now, to make things a bit more interesting, especially at night, you can add park lights. What about the media console? Well, Once again, I'll take you through it. This is another piece in my long list of DIY projects. If you've been around the channel for a while, you might remember at one point it was white. But not too long ago, every idea from the Pinterest mood boards, the design books, descended upon it like wildfire. On the drawer fronts, I mounted half-round timber molding, then to complete the look, I added a walnut timber top, but not before mounting the Govee neon light underneath it. Functionality-wise, I use it to put away all the things I want out of sight, and it also hosts some of the tech in the living room. And starting with the soundbar, I'm using the Samsung HWQ950T, and tell you what, when I'm deep in a movie or a gaming session, it puts me right in the thick of the action. Now, I know I'm not an audiophile, but there's certainly a baseline for what sounds good and what doesn't. Clarity, detail, dynamic range, and clear separation between the frequencies are some of the key aspects of good quality sound, and the Q950T ticks all those boxes. To the left, I've got my 2nd gen Google Nest Hub, and being a techie, it helps run my smart home automations for the living room. Across the other side, I've got the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, my preferred consoles of choice. Honestly speaking, I'm quite lucky to be able to play some of my favorite titles across both ecosystems, whether it's Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PS5 or Halo Infinite on the Xbox Series X. At this point, both consoles are well past the midpoint of their life cycles, and a lot has changed. If you'd like a comparison between the PS5 and Xbox at this point of their life cycles, let me know in the comment section. Not too far from them, I've got a smart air purifier that ensures the air stays clean, especially when I'm cooking in the kitchen or on those days I've had beans and the good old stinker just doesn't stop coming out like granddad in this clip. Well, at this point, I'd assume you guys want to know about the furniture in this setup. Well, here's the breakdown. Starting with the coffee table, not only is it functional, but it ties in well with the rest of the living room furniture. Matter of fact, it was the reason I added walnut to the media console when I initially did the second makeover. Now, for those wondering about the price, yeah, it's a bit on the pricey side, but if you got 700 Australian dollars burning a hole in your pocket, then you can get it from Castlery. I love its beautiful geometric shape, which adds just the right amount of visual interest, and thanks to its modularity, I can reconfigure it however I want. Another Castlery piece in the living room is this sectional sofa with the chaise. If I were to describe it in just 2 words, I would say premium comfort. To put that into context, I tipped the scales north of 100 kilograms, and despite crashing on it countless times, the memory foam recalibrates everything the moment I stand up. Did I mention the stitching and fabric? Oh, it's just premium. And just a disclaimer, Castlery didn't sponsor this video. I coughed up some serious coin to get these 2 pieces, and my opinions are entirely based on the 2 years I've spent with them. When it comes to maintenance, this spot cleaner keeps the fabric grey and not some tragic shade of oops. Maintenance aside, at this point you've probably picked up I've got storage everywhere in this living room, and the IKEA Homrad side table carries on with that. Extra storage? Tick. Food and drink holder while I'm seated on the chaise part of the sofa? Tick. If you're looking for storage options, the Homrad side table can come in handy, especially if you're tight on space. Now, let's talk about accent chairs. They're not for every living room, but if you've got the space, they break monotony, they add texture, they introduce color, and also create depth. In my case, I've got the replica Eames lounge chair and this brown leather armchair, all of which have got a tick against all the points I just mentioned. For those craving a little color pop, they're the easiest way to add color to your space without painting an entire wall or buying a new sofa. For some context, the brown leather armchair was my first accent color, then the Moroccan leather poof, and most recently, the rust-colored curtains. Now, I know you've seen those Pinterest perfect rooms where everything looks the same exact page and you're like, wow, this looks so safe. On the one side, it's totally fine if that's your style, but here's the thing with using the same exact color throughout. If you'd ask me, it's a fast track to a room feeling flat, overly staged, and let's be honest, it's the cookie cutter design we see in every furniture display store. But there's always a remedy. What you can do instead is introduce slight variations in tone, texture, and materials. Once you do that, that's where the magic starts to happen and your setup moves from being good to a chef's kiss kind of space. In my case, on the color front, I'll lean more towards the earth tones, the browns, the rusts, the walnuts and greens of the world, then throw in a bit of texture, different shapes, and together they complement each other, creating a visual spectacle. That in a nutshell is how you turn your space into a visual spectacle, just like I did in my dining area. On the surface, it looks calm, put together and peaceful, but the underlying details are what create all of that. If you'd ask me, the wall right next to it, the curtains, the plants are what takes its aesthetic to the next level. Now, when it comes to functionality, the Clackenas side table from IKEA is the unsung hero. Honestly, it's hiding things I forgot I even owned. As for the shelves, the staggered looks gives it that curated editorial look. Plus, it's an excuse to display some of my books and decor. When it comes to lighting, there are two main characters here. One is the famous donut lamp from IKEA, and in my opinion, the most unintentional piece of delicious lighting ever made. The other, well, it's called Ask Muller, also from IKEA, but they don't sell it in that colorway. I spray painted it orange to match the theme of the space. In the middle, I've got this 3D LED light and it adds loads of visual interest to the space. As for the dining table, one of my all-time Facebook Marketplace wins. It's still holding up like a champ, and aesthetically, just look at it. Add 2 hydro plants on top of it, the IKEA sculpted carved floor lamp, 2 peace lilies, a money plant, 3 plants in coconut fiber baskets, and the aesthetic dining room dream nearly comes full circle. But not quite, not until this enters the scene. A canvas painting of some of my favorite actors, framed perfectly by these rechargeable wall sconces. Underneath it, this buffet unit, another unsung hero, quietly storing away all those bits and bobs you want out of sight. Just like the IKEA Besta in the hallway. If I'm being honest, this hallway might just be one of my proudest DIY projects. If you've been thinking about customizing your IKEA Besta, don't scroll just yet. Here's what you'll need, and trust me, it's easier than you think. For the raw materials, you'll need cane webbing, dark brown or plain, flat reed, and optional reed spline. As for the tools, you'll need a drill, a jigsaw, tape measure, sandpaper, liquid nails, and a staple gun. Once you've cut out your design, add flat reed on the inside with liquid nails. From there, trim off the excess, then spray paint it the same color as the doors. Once the paint is dry, that's when you staple the cane webbing on all the door fronts and cut off any excess. At this point, you can add the optional reed spline or leave it as it is. Once you're done, you've got a designer looking piece for less than half the price and a story to tell. Now, I know I've mentioned storage throughout the video, and this is another storage point, but if you'd ask me, there's nothing wrong with always having a little bit of an extra storage. Anyway, this isn't just storage. Like I mentioned a little earlier in the video, it doubles up as a home bar, and trust me, it impresses. But what surprises people the most isn't even the Besta, it's the plant shelf wall. Every time I have visitors, that's what gets the most attention, and honestly, it's a visual masterpiece and another weekend project you can knock out in a day or two. This entryway organizer I also built in a day stores my keys, mail, and other miscellaneous stuff. Underneath it, another storage piece, this time for shoes I daily during the week. Another project you can knock out in a day or two is this aesthetic entryway checkout area. Once those slat panels are up, hanging the mirror is absolute child's play. After that, add these rechargeable wall sconces, a sleek sideboard, and suddenly your hallway isn't just a hallway, it becomes a statement, and I can attest to that by the number of people who've jaw-dropped once they enter the house. Speaking of jaws dropping, mine did too, but not for the same reason, from my plant leaves dropping. Now, despite growing plants for over 5 years, I had no idea why the plants in the hallway were struggling, especially when they started off so well. Then it hit me, the hallway just doesn't have enough sunlight. And some of these plants, they need more than just cozy vibes to survive. So I learned my lesson and I'll be moving things around. If your hallway doesn't have a lot of natural light like mine, don't make the same mistake. Pick plants that love low light and you'll be fine. Or at least your plants will be fine. If not, there's always vacuums. There you have it, guys. That's how I transformed my living room, hallway, and dining areas into the most functional and visually compelling parts of my home. And hey, I know what you're thinking, you want to redo your own space. But before you do, watching this might save you from that flat cookie cutter Pinterest look, picking the wrong mix of colors, painting your room 5 times, and let's be honest, it's not just about copying a look. It's about understanding how to layer personality, function, aesthetic, and warmth into your space your own way. I hope you enjoyed and found this video helpful, and as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and click the notification bell to get notified whenever I post a new video. To watch the entire step-by-step process, check out this video. Until then, people of the internet, I'm signing out. See you over here.